Today I had the privilege and pleasure of interviewing the 2017 SBA award winner, Alex Fernandez from Fernandez Consulting and Construction, Inc. Alex is doing some incredible things, and I want to share that with you, the message. If you don't, or if you haven't already heard, we've got an upcoming podcast that will be featuring Alex Fernandez, but right now we have outstanding several significant entrepreneurs who have embarked on their journey, and they were kind enough to share their story with Gov Con Science. If you've not already checked that out, make sure to check that out over on Google Play, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts at. But today, I want to talk about Alex Fernandez and what the great things he's doing. He's a 6-time honoree, Inc. 500, 5000 award. He did $50 million last year. Yeah, $50 million. So again, we've got some incredible people coming up, and the information was so good. I just had to share it with you guys because I wanted people to have it. I didn't want for you to have to wait to get it out there. But Alex talked about a lot of subjects. First of all, he was service-disabled veteran. He was in the military. He was a HUBZone, and he was 8A. And he mentioned some really key points for me, which was a lot of times when he first got started, he said this. He was doing work for the VA hospital, but because he was HUBZone, they might have been checking him for 2 boxes and getting credit for his HUBZone status all at the same time of him being VA. And he shared the fact that on one occasion that he can recall, and it probably was, like he said, it was something he wasn't supposed to hear or wasn't supposed to be made aware of, but one of the veteran administrative people said, "Thank you so much for allowing us to meet our HUBZone criteria," because what they did was they went out, and even though all of the bidders bid higher than the government's estimate, they went ahead and put more money in the contract just so that they could meet their HUBZone requirements and satisfy their goals. Because prior to, if they had awarded the contract to someone else who was not a HUBZone, they would not have been able to achieve that goal. And so for a lot of you out there who have multiple certifications, that may be an advantage. You may not be aware that the government will select or choose your bid to help achieve a goal, even though the proposed solicitation was advertised under another type of socio-economic program and platform. And so that was one thing that I thought was really a hidden gem that he shared with us today. Another thing Alex talked about is, how he got his start. And I asked him just really candidly, what did you do to get started? And he said that he did 2 years banking prior to coming on board and starting his own company. One of the things that Alex did was he was very strategic, and I like this about him. He grew up in Miami, much like myself, and he lived through Hurricane Andrew. And a lot of times, and he probably was, obviously a very young man at the time, as I was a child. He saw that even though there was a lot of devastation, it created a huge backlog of opportunity and work and projects for people who were in business at the time. And I can say a friend of mine who was also SBA award winner during the same time as Alex, Paul Morrow, South Dade Air, that he told me the same thing, that during that time when you were in business, during the hurricane, a lot of people made a lot of money. And so Alex, having worked or went to Tulane University, he went there for undergrad, went to the military, came back to Tulane, and got his MBA. When Katrina hit, he saw that as the right time to jump into the federal marketplace and start working. And with no construction background, he jumped right in. And what I thought was remarkable was how he foresaw, like, hey, there's going to be a lot of work out there, more so than the people in the area can do. It's going to be tough, but it's going to be very fruitful. And that was the launching pad for his business, was literally Katrina. And he admitted he was 2nd and 3rd tier subcontractor and doing really just dirty stuff, cutting down trees, hauling off debris, like any and everything. And, for the first couple of years in business. And he struggled. He had many sleepless nights. We talked about the different turnover in staff and things like that. And of course, if you're doing disaster work, you're not getting the most professional clientele or workforce to deal with. So it was difficult for him, but he worked through it. And so he took that experience, and literally after a couple of years in business, he started building up some past performance. because of his background in finance and actual banking, he went out and raised capital for his business. He raised about $300,000, and that allowed him to get bonding and shortly thereafter start picking up some significant projects. So again, I thought that this was worthwhile information to share. And I asked him, Alex, why do you see so many small businesses that are not performing up to their level? And he said that he mentioned 2 points. The first point was, one is they're not focused, right? And he says he admits that he fell into the same trap. When people would ask him what can he do, he would say everything, right? And that's not the right answer. And he says, so when people come to him now and they say everything, again, that's not the right answer. Granted, we want to be able to do everything, but really, what you should be saying is focusing on one particular area that you could do, and then that way, a contracting official or a prime contractor will know you for that specific area. And that's how I was able to land my first $5 million contract with no bonding, was because people knew me for doing steel buildings inside the government arena. And like he said, you should be saying drywall or painting or demolition or asbestos remediation or whatever the case may be, R&D or engineering, manufacturing components, whatever that case may be. He said choose an area to focus on, and then that way you're known amongst everyone in that arena for having that particular specialty and skill. And then the second thing that he mentioned was that people don't work hard. He says he hears a lot of people say, well, yeah, I put in a full 40 hours this week. And he says for many, many, many years, he went 7 days a week, 16 hours a day. And that's what it took. He worked on the weekends doing his bookkeeping. He did his own QuickBooks up until he could build up the company. And so a lot of times, this is hard work. It's very rewarding. It's very fruitful, but it is hard work. And a lot of times, what I've heard in the past, they say 40 hours gets you to the average lifestyle, and anything above that is going to take you beyond the everyday person. So again, I thought that those points were very valid and good enough to share. Not saying that I'm telling everyone to go out there and work 16 hours a week. I'm just sharing on that's what Alex did. And again, a lot of my entrepreneur buddies, friends, we all wake up at 3, 4 in the morning. And we work, and again, everyone has their own different schedules. Some people work up into the wee hours of the night. Some people get an early start and work throughout the day, taking a nap in between, and then picking up and starting over again. But I think the biggest point to take home from that is that when a lot of times you're not making time for so-called distractions. One other thing that I just remember that I thought was very critical to share is I asked him, I go, during the rough times, what made you stick with it? He said his wife was very supportive, and also he said that his wife had a steady job, and that steady job provided like a basis of income. So when the cash flow was low and money was low and things were tight, he still had a place to live. He still was able to basically feed himself, feed his family. And so that also helped him be able to stick with it through a lot of the rough patches. But when we see these people, when we hear these people, when we look at their stories, we forget that they went to rough times. We forget that they had to exercise faith. We forget that a lot of times they pivoted. We take it for granted that, the stuff that we're going through or the stuff that we're experiencing, as though no one else has experienced that. Everyone has been through that. Everyone who has, who's at the level where you admire, you respect, you look up to, has experienced some sort of self-doubt. And so that's a normal feeling. They've experienced some sort of fears. They weren't unsure. They had to trust and something that they could not necessarily see or put their hands on. They had to trust that their ideas would work themselves out. And I think that that's a common theme that I'm seeing amongst entrepreneurs and business people alike, developers, inventors, the case may be. Listen, if you like that information, if you like what we're talking about, and you want to offer up some suggestions for types of people that we can interview, make sure to send me a tweet over at Twitter. Let me know who you think. Maybe you saw someone at a panel or gave a speech, or maybe you heard about someone like a big time SBA person. Let me know someone that you want me to interview. Send me a tweet, and I will be trying to reach out to those people, get them on board. But again, check out the Gov Con Science podcast. It is very exciting. We're connecting with a lot of people, sharing a lot of stories that, again, we're putting it right into your home so that you can have this information on your phone, anywhere you're at, anywhere you could be while you're exercising, you can listen to it. And, what I'm encouraging all of my guests on the show to do is give me some practical steps, give me some practical things that people can take back and start applying in their business right away. That's what I want. I want the meat and potatoes. I don't want someone to stand up there and say, hey, I got all this money, I did all these great things. I want to know, what did you do? How did you get started? How did you go from no bonding to $50 million in bonding, right? What did that take? How did you go from one office to 16 offices? How did you set up an office in Afghanistan? How did you, as in the case of Narjis Ali, how did you come from Pakistan, immigrant from Pakistan to the United States, start working at IBM, and then go on to launch a NASA award-winner-based IT firm? How did you do that? How did you feel? How did it make you feel? We've had people on there. We've had several women, and I've asked them about, what did it take? What was it like? Did they feel discriminated against? Did they feel that in a male-dominated world, did they have to bite their tongue in so many respects? And so those are the questions that I ask people, because those are the things that people ask me, right? So again, if you've got some questions that you want me to ask out to any upcoming guests, also same thing. Make sure you tweet me that. But again, like I said, I just want to share that information with you. Hope this video helps. I'm going to start trying to produce more of this type of content so that we can have an open dialogue day in and day out. All right. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.